Hello and welcome back to another historical knitting video. This one's actually going to be a little bit different from any of the ones I've done in the past. There's not actually going to be any knitting of any kind, so if you're not interested in just hearing me talk about historical knitting, then feel free to maybe wait until my next video comes out, where I'll hopefully be doing some knitting, maybe. I'm actually onto the sewing portion, so I'm not exactly sure. In any case, I thought this would be an exciting video to make because I recently got an original petticoat. Now, it's not a Victorian petticoat. I'm pretty sure it's an Edwardian petticoat because I got a petticoat and a corset cover, and the corset cover kind of has that pigeon front shape, which is, I believe, a little bit more indicative of an Edwardian style versus a Victorian style. In any case, why I was so particularly excited about this petticoat is that it has a hand knit lace trim at the bottom. So here is the petticoat with the lace trim at the bottom, which is so exciting. It's incredibly delicate. The size of the stitches are just, wow, amazingly small. And actually, it's so delicate, so intricate, and done so consistently. I was at first questioning whether or not this was actually hand knit. However, I studied it very closely, and I found a few things that I believe indicate that it is actually a hand knit lace trim. So the first thing that I noticed is that this is kind of an increasing triangle of yarn overs to make that kind of hole pattern in the lace trim. And there's one spot that I could find where there's supposed to be one hole followed by two and then three, and there's actually, on the second row, there's a complete row missing. So I didn't think that a machine knit lace would do something like this, but this is something that I've personally done when I was knitting lace, and I actually have those same mistakes in my own knit trim for my petticoat, so that makes me feel like it's a little bit more authentic to what people actually wore and the lace trims that they made themselves. I also found an error in the top border, which came right after that previous error, so I think that was kind of the original person who was knitting this trying to correct for that mistake. So you can see that, but when you zoom out a little bit, it's not very noticeable. I really had to study the lace very, very up close to see all of these mistakes that I was noticing. The other part that I realized that was probably a mistake was, I believe that the person did one extra yarn over and then realized later that they shouldn't have, and worked back and removed that yarn over and then tried to get the tension evened out. At least that's what it looks like when I do something similar. So you see that the tension is a little bit off in those stitches from the ones that are surrounding it. It's also interesting to see, so I actually knit the trims for my petticoat in 4 sections just because the blocking would be a little bit too difficult with one, 14.5-foot long lace piece. However, this person did knit it all in one strip, and you can see where they attached it together again in the round right here, kind of at the side. And then I also had a few questions about exactly how this was structured. So from what I could tell from the feel of it, this does actually feel like the lace was slightly starched. So the lace that I've knit that hasn't been starched doesn't really hold its shape quite as much and doesn't really have the same kind of almost paper quality. It's hard to describe exactly what I mean, but from the way that it feels in my hands and the way that it kind of falls when I hold it up, really seems like it was starched in some way. I've been trying to find some articles on, how historic starching hand knit lace is, if people actually did that. But to me, it seems like this lace was actually starched. I don't know if it was starched at the time or starched before being sent to me, but it does truly seem like someone was starching this lace. I was also trying to get a better sense of how the lace trim was attached to the petticoat itself, and it looks almost like an heirloom insertion method that I use, but just with a much larger border. So I was just trying to see exactly how they sewed this on. I couldn't tell if it was machine stitched or hand stitched, but it did kind of look like it was whip stitched over. I don't know, maybe I need stronger glasses now. Maybe one of you guys will know, and you'll let me know from the close-ups that I'm showing you how exactly it was sewn onto the petticoat. Overall, I would say the petticoat is in fantastic condition, and the other thing that I decided to do was to compare the lace that was knit by this person in the Edwardian times to the lace that I knit for my petticoat. When you hold it up side by side, you can see that there is quite a difference. The antique lace is much more delicate, much more fine, and looks a lot more pleasing to the eye than mine does. However, this bottom circumference of their petticoat is much smaller than the one that I did, so for me, unless I was knitting for about a year, it just wouldn't be feasible for me to knit something with that kind of gauge to trim the entire bottom of my petticoat. I then decided to compare it against the most recent lace trim that I did, which is the lace trim for my corset cover. And for that, I used the smallest yarn that I could find in my local yarn shop, which was crochet thread in number 10. But it seems like the petticoat lace trim, the antique one, is even more delicate than the one that I did. And I already was using quadruple zero needles with the smallest crochet thread that I could find, and it was still significantly larger than the original lace. I'm just absolutely impressed by the original people who were making this lace and the dedication and the time. The other part of this that was pretty exciting was the actual corset cover. Now, like I said, this is not from the same time period that I'm making my outfit from, so it does have a bit of a different silhouette. It kind of has that pigeon front silhouette going on that you kind of get from that S-band corset. I'm pretty sure. I haven't looked a lot into that time period, so I don't really know. Now, this one, it's quite delicate. It's also, I have to be incredibly careful with it because it has a hook and eye closure, and the entire, from the neck to, the top of the yoke, is very delicate mesh and lace. One thing that I find really fascinating is the actual lace bits that are held up on the neck are held up by boning. I don't know how to tell if something is baleen, but it's almost see-through. Unfortunately, one of the bones did break, and a lot of them aren't really attached in the appropriate places anymore. It doesn't really stand up and hold up on its own, and I mean, this is such a small size, there's no way that I could wear it myself. Look at this. This is the top of the neck. I mean, that really... yeah, that would choke me. Not that I would ever try to wear this. It's in too delicate of a condition, but I do think it's really beautiful to see the construction and also see the, bless you. In any case, I thought it was fascinating to see the construction of something, even if it wasn't close to the silhouette that I'm currently going for. Alright, so that was it for this video. Please let me know if you like this format. I thought it would be really interesting to share an antique that is close to some of the items that I'm trying to recreate. It got me at least very excited. If you want to see more of these, please let me know. I do have other items that I could share with you all. So for example, I have an original 1890s shirtwaist. I have some original books and magazines that I can go into more detail on. If you guys are interested in another short video like this where I talk about it a little bit and bring up some of the things that I found interesting about it, please let me know, especially because it'll take some time for my next few ones to come out since I'm doing a lot of sewing right now. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, feel free to give it a like. If you want to see more historical sewing, more historical knitting, please feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you.